Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 383. What's going on, everybody? So, before we jump into our article for tonight, just a quick heads up on what to expect this coming week. This coming week, as you should all be aware of by now, I will be doing an Ask Me Anything session, and that will be on the 30th. I haven't figured out the exact time yet. Still trying to hammer that down. I should know by tomorrow. I want to do it at a time where the most people can access it, right? Remember, there's people that listen all over the globe. We have people in Australia. We have people in England. We have people in, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Asia, Japan. So I want to try and get it. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect for everybody, but I'm trying to get it to a time where it will be at least feasible that a good majority of people will get a chance to participate. So I should figure out by tomorrow, the daily drop tomorrow night, what time we will be doing that at and have it all locked in. But that's coming on the 30th. And like I said, in the new year, I definitely have some things planned for the show. No doubt about it. We have, we have a ways to go here. July is when Ghislaine Maxwell's trial gets underway and, the meat and the potatoes of the trial get started. So up until then, we're going to have a lot of twists and turns to stay on top of. So I plan on doing what we've always done here and at least doing one new episode every single day. I know the last few days have been pretty boring with just the one episode. I hope those flashback episodes kind of filled the void. And to those of you out there who might not want to listen to the flashback episodes because you've heard them before or whatever, that's cool. It's mainly for people who want a crash course or to revisit a topic, and for new listeners to the show. Since the catalog is so massive, I figure if I flip those flashback episodes every now and then up like the way I've been doing, then people will be able to have access to some of the older shows or some shows you might have missed or, all of that stuff. So those flashback episodes will always be labeled as that. So if it's not something you're interested in, just keep it on moving. Now, we have an article tonight that we're going to talk about. It's an article from the Daily Beast, and it's about the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family and a look at his first year being a shamed royal outcast. And with the year ending and us staring into the maw of 2021 and it being, again, a slow news day as far as the case goes, I figured this will be a good article to add to the catalog for the end of the year. So let's jump into this article by Tom Sykes over at the Daily Beast and take a look at Prince Andrew's first year living in shame. The headline, Inside Prince Andrew's First Year as a Shamed Royal Outcast. Author Tom Sykes. For all the faults of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, even their harshest critics would admit their complete devotion to their children. Well, I don't know them well enough to know anything about their devotion to their children, right? Seems like they have a good relationship with their kids, but who the hell knows what goes on behind closed doors. And I would think that the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, I would think that his relationship had to have suffered a little bit with his daughter, trying to use her as an alibi, and then her not remembering that. I would think it suffered a little bit, right? But again, like I always say, I don't get involved in any of that stuff as far as those sorts of issues with the royal family. I don't know enough about it to give you guys a proper opinion. So I just, stay in my lane so my rims don't pop. Despite their many affairs and romances, and much to Prince Philip's bemusement, the pair have such a good divorce that they still live together. Now, again, I don't know, is it because they have such a good divorce, or is it because it's convenient? Circumstance of convenience. Again, there's a lot of you out there that have your finger on the pulse of the monarchy and what goes on behind the scenes that I could never even begin to approach that level of knowing about this stuff. But from an outsider's perspective and somebody who has never really followed the royal family or Princess Diana or Andrew or any of this stuff before the Jeffrey Epstein case, I would think that this is certainly has to take a toll on whatever sort of relationship that they have right now. I mean, we know that Fergie isn't innocent here. We know that she took money from Jeffrey Epstein as well. So they both have a history with Jeffrey Epstein, while Prince Andrew's is obviously much more intimate and a lot longer. So it will no doubt be particularly galling for both of them that, as 2020 draws to a close, they now face Christmas apart from their children after the United Kingdom was ordered into a strict new lockdown by the country's Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. And that's crazy. I've been following that a little bit over there for the listeners over in England, and I hope this blows over real quick for you guys. What a shitty way to spend the holiday. It's bad enough here with our so-called quote-unquote pause that we have going on in Nevada, but with the mandatory shutdown, the virus raging out of control, according to the numbers, it got to be a pretty crappy Christmas for sure. And I'm not too concerned about these royals and how terrible their Christmas might have been. But to all of the working class poor and the average folks over in England, I can't even imagine. Just the only thing I could possibly say is just keep on keeping on, folks. I mean, if anyone knows how to put their heads down and keep on marching when they're in hell, like Winston Churchill said, it's the English. So I hope that this lockdown blows over and you folks out there listening who are in England and Ireland and Scotland, I hope that you're not too affected by any of this and your loved ones come out on the other side okay. Eugenie, 30, and her big sister Beatrice, 32, now both married, would have undoubtedly hoped to spend Christmas with their parents at their splendid home, Royal Lodge in Great Windsor Park. Yeah, where the guy who's allergic to horses lives. This Royal Lodge. The guy who was riding around on horses the other day. That's where they're going to spend their Christmas, right? How many of you are spending your Christmas in a small flat apartment on solo status because you couldn't go see your family either? While I empathize with people, and I empathize with normal people especially, but when it comes to these royals, I'm sure if they really wanted to work it out and his daughters wanted to be with them, I'm sure they could have figured it out. So I don't know how much I believe that it's gutting the daughters to not be around Pops right about now. And again, that's just speculation on my part, right? I don't know the inner workings of the royal family or any of that jazz. I'm just, speculating from what you think would be occurring, right? If they have all that power, they have all that pull, I'm sure they could have all been in the same spot if they wanted to be. I understand not the parents are a lot older, right? But Andrew and Fergie and the kids, if they wanted to, batten down the hatches together, I'm sure that's what would have occurred. However, coronavirus restrictions now in place across London and much of the south of England mean the family won't be able to gather for the Christmas holiday. It will be a miserable end to a terrible year for the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, although few will shed a tear for the former playboy, given that it was his friendship with the monstrous sexual predator, Jeffrey Epstein, that brought him to this pass. Oh, you'd be surprised. There certainly are some weirdos that are going to shed a tear for him. A few of them on Twitter, that's for sure. There's like this mentally incapacitated group of like 3 or 4 people that still think that this dude's telling the truth. It's absurd, right? Absolutely absurd for anyone to think that this guy does not to be questioned further, that this guy shouldn't sit down and give a statement under oath. If it really takes a leap to believe that. And that's all I've ever called for, right? And all I can do is speak for myself. Me, I've always wanted this to work its way, the correct way, through the system. I wanted the system to work, God damn it. And obviously, we all know that's a pipe dream, right? But it usually works enough to where people like this get put in prison, you would hope. And with what has occurred in this case, yeah, that certainly didn't occur. Things went drastically wrong for Prince Andrew in November of 2019. This was when a fairly straightforward plan to get himself in front of a camera and issue an apology for his association with Epstein went right off of the rails. And, they call it a car crash interview, and you know what I say about it. That shit was Hindenburg-level disaster. This moron had no business speaking to anybody about this case. Not if he wanted to have any sort of air of innocence. He is legit the biggest buffoon going. And I think that the label of Joe Exotic is the perfect fitting label for this dunce. In the now notorious interview with the BBC's Newsnight program, Andrew failed to show any sympathy for Epstein survivors and denied any memory of ever even meeting Virginia Roberts. He implied that a photograph of him with Roberts in Maxwell's house was a fake. And we know how much BS that is. We know that's absolute BS. We know that picture is not a fake, okay? There's no disputing that the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family knows Virginia Roberts. There's no disputing that. Are we just going to ignore the picture? Are we going to ignore the email that he sent to Ghislaine Maxwell in 2015, I believe, with specific questions regarding Virginia? We're just going to ignore all of that? No, not here on this podcast. Other people might. Not here. We know the score here. We've been checking the scoreboard, and we know for a fact that the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family has not been telling the truth. He said he couldn't have had sex with her because he was at a branch of a British restaurant chain, Pizza Express. He alleged he did not sweat, prompting a barrage of photos of him sweating profusely to be published in the media. He said he didn't regret his friendship with Epstein. He did say that. We all heard him say it, and that's what he meant, right? I'm going to take him at face value when he's talking about his BFF Jeffrey, a guy that he respected and admired so much that he decided he was going to fly over the Atlantic Ocean to, quote-unquote, break up with. So yeah, we know the deal. We know that you didn't regret your friendship with Epstein. The only thing you regret is that you were put on blast over it. The only thing you regret is that now you have to answer these questions. And the only thing that you regret is that the narrative has been snatched directly from you and is now being used to absolutely destroy your bullshit story. 5 days later, Andrew was unceremoniously kicked out of the firm as the business end of the operations of the royal family is referred to by its CEO. He was stripped of all official roles and his round-the-clock armed police protection, and he was even evicted from his office in Buckingham Palace. And look, let's not ignore the fact that this has all occurred. Let's not ignore the fact that this man is at least facing serious civil and social penalties. We've come a long way, right? For me, starting this case in 2019 when I did, we have certainly come a long way. I cannot even imagine how the survivors feel. From nobody listening to them and the government actively working against them, to Andrew being on the ropes, Maxwell being behind bars, Brunel behind bars. Not to mention all of the other so-called members of so-called polite society who have also had to step back from their companies. I'm looking at you, bitch-ass Glenn Dubin, and Crypt Keeper-looking MF Les Wexner. Oh, what, you thought I forgot about Mr. Wexner? Stop it. That dude's going to get the double barrel full evisceration, and it's coming soon. Don't worry, folks. Andrew was perhaps fortunate that the tsunami of royal news surrounding Harry and Meghan's departure from the royal family in the early part of 2020 pushed his story down news feeds. No, it didn't. Not here, right? And let's give props to places like the Daily Mail and the Sun. The Daily Mail and the Sun continuously were hammering Prince Andrew on this story. And I remember when they would break stories, people would be like, oh yeah, it's the Sun, it's the Daily Mail. At the end of the day, folks, I'm not too worried about the source if the story checks out, right? Now, of course, if the source is somebody that has a reputation that one must be wary of, you have to do your due diligence. But these situations that we're talking about here, that the Sun and the Daily Mail and the New York Post and others were chasing down, they all had legs and everybody knew it. The problem was the so-called legacy media was too busy worrying about stuff like Harry and Meghan wanting to leave the royal family to live their own lives, as if that's a bigger story than what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. I mean, to them it is, but to the rest of us, to the working class, to those of us who have, real skin in the game, well, we know what the big story is, and this is the big story. People want justice. All 6 continents, people have had enough. And I'm sure people on Antarctica are tired of getting screwed over too when they're there. So I'm guessing all 7 continents, everybody's tired of being screwed over by these people. Everybody's tired of the legacy media running whatever sort of BS nonsense they want to run and burying the really important stories like this. It's a shame. It's really a shame that the Fourth Estate has stumbled its way into being so dishonest and being so in the bag for the intelligence agencies. For that reason, however, it is more important than ever to remind ourselves that Andrew stands accused of spending much of 2020 declining to honor an explicit commitment he gave to help Epstein investigators. And look, I'm glad that the Daily Beast is running this, right? How many of the Unsullied out there still don't know the deal? How many of the Unsullied out there really don't understand what was truly going on here? And the fact that the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family promised to help investigators, then snubbed his nose at everybody, like he's some special kind of person because he was born in purple. Meanwhile, everybody's looking at each other like, all right, well, this dude said he's going to talk to investigators. He's not talking to the investigators. How come there is no repercussions for people like him? How come Jean-Luc Brunel was able to duck, dodge, and dip out on some depositions? How come Maxwell was? How come Andrew doesn't get deposed? Where's Wexner's deposition? Where's Dershowitz's? These people, they get to do whatever the hell they want. They can do whatever they want. They can act however they want, and they truly believe that there aren't going to be any repercussions whatsoever. And that's because that's the way it's been for all of these years. But now, like I was saying, people have had enough, and people are starting to demand accountability. And you see it from all facets of the political spectrum, be it right or left. People are demanding that shit changes. Now, I don't know if people have the wherewithal to push it over the goal line or if it's just the Trump effect, but I would hope that all of you people that were out there going ham and wilding out don't lose any of that pizzazz. Because if you think 46 is coming in here to white knight anything and to make our lives better as the working poor, you have not been paying attention. His offer to provide whatever cooperation was required of him to help the authorities investigating Epstein and to bring some measure of closure to the pedophile financier's survivors has been revealed as a sham. Fine words entirely unsupported by matching actions. Yeah. Yes. And again, the Daily Beast has done a really good job, especially Kate Bricklet, throughout this whole entire thing. And reminding everybody at the end of the year, in the nice recap here with a bow on it, about the kind of scumbag that the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family is a fantastic idea in my opinion, folks. So make sure you share this episode with all of your friends. His exact words on the issue, made in a statement as he announced his departure from public life, were as follows. I continue to unequivocally regret my ill-judged association with Jeffrey Epstein. His suicide, allegedly, has left many unanswered questions, particularly for his survivors, and I deeply sympathize with everyone who has been affected and wants some form of closure. I can only hope that in time they will be able to rebuild their lives. Of course, I am willing to help any appropriate law enforcement agency. So the FBI is not appropriate? What about the investigators over in France, whatever they're called? They want to have a chat with you too, my friend. Sure had a lot to say to Emily Maitlis. You sure had a lot to say in that email to Ghislaine Maxwell. Why the clam job? Why are you shutting up now? Nothing left to say there? Joe Exotic of the Windsor family? It's a slap in the face to these survivors, in my opinion, for him to act like he actually sympathizes, like he cares. A man with all this money, all this wealth, all this power. After Epstein was arrested the first time, he still went and chilled with him. He still cavorted with him. He still stayed at his house. And he cares about survivors, huh? What has he ever done with all of his privilege, with all of his money, with all of his connections to truly help people? Not put your name on some charity, right? Not put your name on some building. When's the last time you hit the streets and helped people? Because I'll tell you what, where I'm from in Las Vegas, there's a lot of people that need help out there in them streets. And it's only about to get worse. So enough with the platitudes, enough with the bullshit, enough with the gaslighting. What have you ever really done for anyone, Andrew, besides yourself? It wasn't long into 2020 that Andrew's offers of help were exposed as hot air. On January 26, the U.S. Attorney for Manhattan, Jeffrey Berman, made a public declaration that Andrew was providing zero cooperation to the FBI investigation into Epstein. And that was a big moment in the case, in my opinion. Very rarely does the Department of Justice or a prosecutor's office come out swinging for the fences like that. They don't talk about who's a witness or who's under investigation or anything like that. Never mind the Prince of the Blood. Never mind the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. So that just goes to show you how much Berman and the FBI and the SDNY wanted to get their claws into this dude. There is zero chance, okay, that he's just wanted as a witness to speak to them as a witness. In my opinion, he is certainly a person of interest. Somebody that they believe possibly committed crimes while in the company of Jeffrey Epstein. That's what they believe, in my opinion. And that's why they want to sit him down for a intimate one-on-one. From the palace came silence. Into the news void came celebrity attorneys Lisa Bloom and her mother, Gloria Allred, who between them were representing at least 6 of Epstein's alleged survivors. Again, Bloom and Gloria Allred, again in my opinion, do a lot more harm than they do good to these cases. Now, it's not for me to tell anyone who their legal counsel should be, right? And if these girls who have employed Allred and Lisa Bloom get to a point in their case where they're happy with their compensation and all of that stuff, then hey, great, job well done. But I really don't think Lisa Bloom or Gloria Allred should be used as spokespersons for lawyers in this case, right? I think we should probably focus more on somebody like Bradley Edwards or Sigrid McCauley as someone as a representative of this case as a whole, somebody who has been working on this case for a very long time. And Allred and Bloom, they just bring drama and BS wherever they go. So it's just more unneeded drama, right? It's all about them. They're always trying to increase their profile, in my opinion, increase their name, and build more of a business off the backs of these survivors. Oh, we got to get our fingers into this Epstein case. Bloom told the BBC the alleged survivors were outraged by the Duke of York not assisting the U.S. authorities and said, "I'm glad that Jeffrey Berman has gone public to try and embarrass Prince Andrew, who made one statement and then behind closed doors is doing something very different. The 5 Epstein survivors who I represent are outraged and disappointed at the Joe Exotic's behavior here." And again, as much as I don't like Bloom and Allred, broken clocks are right twice a day, and she's definitely right there. If these survivors have every right to be upset at somebody like Andrew who's withholding information, even if they weren't abused by Andrew, right? If he's a material witness even, and he has some information that could bring some of their abusers to justice, and he sits on that, well, he's a piece of shit too then, right? He's committing crimes too then, right? So that's why I would think that these other survivors are, joining the call, and why the other survivors are demanding that Andrew answers the fucking bell. Excuse me, sorry about the F-bomb, answers the bell. And I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. It's a slap in all of their faces that this idiot continues to get away with this shit without answering any questions. That's what I'm talking about when I say get away with this. Because he hasn't been proven guilty yet, right? Look, especially here in America, everyone's innocent until they're proven guilty. But boy, the evidence sure is mounting. The evidence is a mile high. And that's how you get to the determination that somebody is guilty. You build up all of the evidence, circumstantial, right? Then you have probable cause. Then you arrest the person. Then the trial comes. Then the conviction. Well, we're at the trial part, basically, now with Ghislaine Maxwell. All that other shit has happened. It's all done. So for all those people who are talking about, oh, this is a conspiracy theory, well, how do you like your crow cooked? If Prince Andrew truly has done nothing wrong, then it's incumbent upon him to go and speak to the FBI at a time that's convenient for him and say what he knows. Perhaps he can help bring other people to justice. A time that's convenient to him, huh? I'm guessing that's around the year 2080 or so. Are we on Prince time or are we on normal people time here? Brazenly, Andrew continued to insist that he was more than happy to talk to U.S. investigators and claimed he was bewildered by their claims that he was the one creating obstructions to an interview. That's the old trick, huh? Well, I'm going to act like I am just completely and utterly outraged by the way you're behaving yourself, even though I'm the one being a jackass. So Andrew has his people go out there and say, Andrew has already said he'd speak to the FBI. Meanwhile, they know that the best kind of lies are the ones with just a little bit of truth sprinkled in, aren't they? And that's what they did here. In March, however, Berman told reporters, contrary to Prince Andrew's very public offer to cooperate with our investigation into Epstein's co-conspirators, an offer that was conveyed via press release, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family has now completely shut the door on voluntary cooperation, and our office is considering its options. So that's a very weighted statement, right? A very loaded statement and a very direct statement aimed at Prince Andrew. And if you think that because Berman is gone, that Audrey Strauss isn't going just as hard, you're wrong. I was not too excited when Berman was removed. Not that I like Berman, mind you. I just don't like when cases are screwed with. So I wasn't too excited when we got Audrey Strauss taking the reins here. But I'll tell you, she has done a really good job. And the fact that Darth Barr is out, that's cause for celebration in its own. And the funniest thing about Barr is, I've been telling people about this dude for a long time. Not just this case, but he's been around for a very long time. And I remember people were cheering Barr on, like, Trump supporters were cheering Barr on like he was this great guy, and he was going to bring everybody down. He was sending Tom Hanks to Gitmo even. We all knew that was bullshit. We all knew that Barr was corrupt as the day is long. And now that he wasn't playing ball with Trump at the end there, well, the other side thinks he's a complete scoundrel, when in reality, it shouldn't be his politics, it should be his behavior that makes you think he's a scoundrel, because, folks, this guy, Darth Barr, is absolutely a scuzzball. Berman was fired from his AG role in June on Donald Trump's orders, and his successor, Audrey Strauss, has not gone after Andrew in the same public manner. Well, strategies change in offices, right? And I'm not too worried about how they're going after him vocally. I'm worried about how they're pursuing the case on the ground and bringing in all of the people who were close to Andrew, as far as Maxwell, Brunel, etc., can only go to rattling this dude's cage. In May, it emerged that Andrew and Sarah were being sued for failing to pay the final installment of almost $9 million on a Swiss ski chalet they bought in 2014. The 7-bedroom ski lodge with an indoor pool and sauna went on sale for $20 million earlier this year, as the Yorks desperately tried to settle the contract. It has still not sold, and the Yorks are said to be contemplating a massive price cut to unload it. Wow. So, just goes to show you how much of a moron this guy is. Again, all of the greatest people in the world at your disposal, and you end up in this bad deal where you can't pay it off, where you're screwed in the end. And imagine a $20 million ski chalet must be nice. Prince Andrew, king of the grifters. The couple were said to be in severe financial difficulty. Their income streams evaporated as Ferguson's book deals and TV contracts were canceled. Standing by your man may be an admirable trait, but the steady drip of revelations about how Andrew misled viewers of that BBC interview and how he evades questioning by the authorities was not likely to attract new investors to Fergie. I don't know why anyone would invest in Fergie at this point. When I talk about a toxic cloud, that's over both of them. Remember, again, she took money from Epstein as well. She was around. She knew what was up. Are we to believe that she's just a jackass? She's just so stupid she had no idea? This Christmas, she launched a mind-bogglingly odd YouTube channel for children that has garnered just a few thousand subscribers. If this is her pathway back to profitability, she has a long way to go. And it's creepy too, right, kids? Why with the kids? Your ex-husband is under accusations of betting a teenage girl. His best friend was obviously a pedophile, 3 12-year-olds. Why are you doing anything with kids? And why would anyone think this is a good idea? Does she have sponsors for this show? And if she does, these sponsors should be embarrassed of themselves. The devastation of the couple's income will have been an extremely painful blow for status-obsessed Andrew. He may be staggeringly wealthy by normal standards, but in comparison with billionaires like Epstein, he was a pauper. That's true, there's no doubt. What Andrew brought to the table wasn't his cool couple million. It was the ins with other royals. How you get credibility on your name from being shoulder to shoulder with old boy. How you get a little bit of his shine. That's why Andrew was valuable. That's why Bill Clinton was valuable. And that is why Jeffrey Epstein collected playthings such as them. The unfairness of his relative penury compared to his staggeringly wealthy brother Charles always grated. Charles has a vast personal fortune estimated at some $400 million, and will inherit his mother's estate tax-free when he becomes king. Well, what's the saying, right? It's good to be the king. And Andrew, you most certainly are not that. If there was a joker in the family, that, my friend, is where you would find yourself in the deck. Andrew's desperation for the trappings of extreme wealth made him an easy target for those looking to exploit his royal name. Witness his shady connections to the son-in-law of the former president of Kazakhstan, who purchased his dilapidated house, Sunning Hill Park, for $4 million above the asking price in 2007. A shocking incident of apparently blatant corruption that, shamefully, was never investigated by the British police. Well, come on. We know a little bit of grift here, a little bit of theft there, a little money laundering over here. That's how these people operated, right? And everybody was willing to turn a blind eye. None of us had time for it. Yeah, we get it. Our politicians are crooks. Tell us something new. But this is a whole new level, isn't it? A whole new level of disgustingness. Children, women, sex trafficking. Yeah, you got our attention now, scumbags. Andrew, former staffers and even his friends will tell you, a tactless and self-important man. A source once told me that at a shooting weekend, Andrew walked into the breakfast room, and when people didn't stand up as a mark of respect to his HRH status, he said, let's try that again. Walked out of the room and walked back in again. The other guests remained seated. Oh, the prince of fools. The prince of buffoons. His own subjects knew he was a clown. His own subjects didn't respect him. The only way he was ever respected, or thought he was respected, was when he was using his status to bring some money his way. When he was using his status to hang out with people like Epstein. Andrew's legal team, who now deal with press inquiries about him, wouldn't confirm or deny this story to the Daily Beast. However, the anecdote demonstrates what many believe to be a fatal problem for Andrew's reputation. The way his own self-importance interacts with the indifference or contempt of others. He's always, look, there's been a lot of those reports, right? That he's contemptible, that he is aloof, that he is just an unpleasant man. The year 2020 was when Andrew's hubris, arrogance, and selfishness were finally revealed to the world in graphic detail. It's also the year, by the way, that the predators turned into the prey. The toxicity around him was so severe, he was erased from the official wedding photographs released by Buckingham Palace of his daughter Beatrice's July wedding to Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi. Andrew and Fergie were both there, but only the Queen and Prince Philip appeared in the pictures. The parents did not. So that's kind of like a lot of people that grew up in poor neighborhoods, right? People who grew up in poor areas. Their parents weren't in any of their pictures, not because it was for shame, but because the home was blown up by disgusting shit that was put into place by people just like Andrew, like the war on drugs. So I'm sorry that your pictures were erased out of your daughter's wedding. At least you were there, right? Even as she was forced to publicly excommunicate him, the Queen has seemed to stand by Andrew in private. That is concerning. I don't know enough about the Queen to assail her one way or the other about anything outside of this case. But when it comes to this case, it certainly seems like he's hiding behind her skirts quite a bit. Viewers of The Crown will have seen this season's episode where the arrogant Andrew is portrayed as her favorite child. This year, she reportedly intervened so he could keep his mega-expensive security detail. In the summer, he visited her for crisis talks at Balmoral. He has been pictured riding at Windsor, where the Queen and Prince Philip are in residence. Well, kind of hard to do when you're allergic to horses, right? I got it. He got a non-allergenic horse, right? That's one of the new ones from the sands of Saudi Arabia. an Arabian stallion with no hair that doesn't make the Prince of Allergies have a sneeze. I'm sure that'll be the next story that comes rolling out from these morons. What lies in Andrew's future? Possibly one or many of these. Declining foreign travel, a declining income, a dramatic reduction in the number of pleasant invitations to shooting weekends in his email box, more or less indirect correlation with an escalating number of less pleasant invitations from global police forces to join them for a cozy chat about Jeffrey Epstein. If Andrew and Fergie thought 2020 was bad, whoo boy, 2021 could get a lot worse. And that is for sure. And I hope it definitely does get worse for them. This guy has been nothing but deceitful. He hasn't come forward. He hasn't stepped up to the plate. He hasn't stood tall before the wagon. Whatever little cliche saying you want to add. He has not done any of it. Instead, he straight punked out the whole entire time. Nobody needs to pull his punk card. His punk card is on display for everybody to see. Pizza party. I can't sweat. That's not me in the picture. My fingers are fat. Meanwhile, the whole entire thing's unraveling. His so-called alibi doesn't exist. And as we move from the year 2020 into 2021, I think it's very apparent at this point that people like Andrew and everybody else that thought they got away with their crimes and they're hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, well, they all thought wrong. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. And to everybody who has helped donate to the show and shared the show, listened to the show, I appreciate all of you so much you don't even know. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow, and we will be on schedule with a morning update, a little bit later than usual, but right back on the schedule with a morning update and a daily drop tomorrow. All right, folks, until then, I hope you all have had a fantastic weekend, and we will be back tomorrow for a little bit more.